Welcome back to day 3 of the Augusta video sew along. Previously we talked about choosing a size and ran through a list of common pattern adjustments. In today's video, we'll be discussing a few more advanced pattern adjustments. We'll start with how to raise or lower your darts, then I'll show you how to raise the V-neck, and finally we'll discuss full bicep adjustments. None of these adjustments are actually difficult or advanced, but they have a reputation for being so in some corners of the internet. You'll see just how easy they are here, so let's get started. There are 2 methods for repositioning your dart, and I'll walk you through each here. Before you start though, you'll need to decide where your dart will fall. To do this, we really do recommend making a muslin, though you can also measure from your shoulder down to your bust point, and then transfer that to your pattern. Keep in mind if you're measuring, there is a yoke that attaches at the shoulder, so you'll need to take that into account if you're measuring your bust point rather than marking it on a muslin. Now for the moving of the dart. The first method involves you moving the entire dart. You will just reposition it on the pattern where you'd like it to fall. So what you'll do is you'll essentially just draw a rectangle around the dart. Then grab your scissors and cut out the rectangle. Now that we have our dart cut out, we have this kind of floating dart. So all you have to do is, say we want to move the dart down a 1/2 inch. We'll just measure a 1/2 inch, align it, and then tape it in place. Now we're not quite done yet. We need to fill in this area that's blank. So simply grab a piece of paper, pop it underneath your pattern, and tape it down. Then tape the top edge. And I'm just gonna put a piece on that corner. Now we need to re-blend our side seams. So take your curved ruler and we're simply gonna re-angle . Hopefully your pencil doesn't break. I'm going to re-angle the side seam. So you can see it's just the tiniest bit different, and that's all there is to moving your dart with this method. If you wanted to move it up, you'd simply do the same thing in the opposite direction. The second method involves only moving the apex of the dart. One example of when you would use this method is if you like where the dart legs hit at the side seam. It also works well in situations like the Augusta, where you're working with a French dart. If you're lowering the dart too much, your dart take-up is going to start running into the side seam split, so you want to keep that in mind when you're moving it. Now, say you do like where these hit, and you just want to slightly move the apex. What you're going to do, extend your grain line up, and then draw a line perpendicular to the grain line through the apex. Now say we want to move it down a 1/2 inch again. Draw a line 1/2 inch down. And then a line straight down from the apex. So this will be your new apex. All you do from here is connect your dart legs. And since we've changed the angle of the dart, we do want to refold the dart So again, I do this, find the center of your dart, score the center, and the lower leg. Then we're going to fold along the lower leg, bringing that up. And you can see the jag here. So we'll just weight this down and reblend our side seam. Now you can either cut along this line with the dart closed, or I like to use my needlepoint tracer and just draw along the new side seam. I then open the dart and trace the new dart take up. And you can see it is different enough. This is what's cut off of the original dart, this area here, that it's a good idea to have done this. So I would recommend not skipping this step. So that is the second way to move your dart. You can see both of those methods were really easy. And now we're ready for our next technique. Depending on the length of your chest from shoulder to bust and your personal preferences, you may want to raise the V-neck of your shirt. For this, you'll need the front and both lapels. So to start, you first need to figure out how much you want to raise it. The best way to do this is to make a muslin, and you can just decide where you want it to hit. You can measure, but it's hard to get an idea exactly of where it will fit based on the pattern piece because the opening is much, much lower than with the lapels attached. So I highly recommend making a muslin with at least one layer of lapel attached to see how much you want to raise it. So from there, you're going to go over to your pattern. And this is similar to what we did for moving the dart. We're going to start by drawing a line below these 2 points perpendicular to the grain line. Then all we need to do is draw a line between the neckline and the dart, and again between the neckline and the dart. This will be the piece that we'll be working with. Now we need to draw in the lines where we'll be shortening our neckline. If you're shortening just a bit, say a ½ inch, I would recommend just drawing one line. But if you want to do more, if you want to shorten it by an inch, I would recommend shortening it over 2 lines. Really quick, just also extend your grain line. And then I'm going to draw in one line halfway between this lower edge and this notch, and another halfway between the notch and the shoulder. So that about 6. And this is about 6 as well. So draw a line perpendicular to the grain line across the panel. Now the easiest way to do this is to just cut out the piece we're working with. And we'll set the main body aside for now. Now, if we want to shorten it by an inch, we'll do a ½ inch at either edge. So I'm just going to draw in my 1/2 inch lines. Cut along the lower edge and then raise. And as you do this, align a ruler to make sure you're keeping that grain line straight. Once it's straight, you can tape it down. And then we'll do the same thing for the bottom. If you can see through your paper like I can, you can tell if it's properly aligned, but if you're using paper you can't see through, definitely check it with a ruler before you tape it down. All right, so that is the neck edge. I'm going to just put a few more pieces of tape in here. And you're going to grab your body back, and we need to realign the shoulders. So the shoulders are aligned. I'm just going to weight them down. And then you want to double check to make sure your grain lines are still aligned. You can see I have to do a little bit of adjustment. All right, the grain line is aligned, and now we need to fill in this area. So grab a piece of paper. We're going to just tuck it underneath. You can see I'm keeping these anchored so things don't move around. And then you're going to tape both layers to the paper underneath to fill in that area. You can remove those now and continue taping up. So we have one solid piece again. Now you can see we have a jagged line at each of the cuts, so we need to blend those to make them smooth. Grab your curved ruler. And you're just going to blend from the top to the bottom. And you can see it's just barely different, but it is different. This side is going to be a little more blending. Again, I'm going not all the way from the bottom. I start a little bit up because we don't want to mess with this area. There's a lot of cutting going on here. So just start up about 1.5 inches. And blend the two together. And you can see it's barely different, but there is a little bit of a difference in here. So these green lines are your new neckline. So if we were to cut that out, it would look like this. So now that we've shortened the body, we need to also shorten the corresponding lapels because right now they don't fit. So here you can see much longer than it needs to be. So set your body aside. You're going to draw, again, 2 lines. The first one was 3 inches from the top. And the second one was 6 inches from there. You're going to draw perpendicular to the grain line again. And then since we shortened a 1/2 inch, we'll draw our 1/2 inch in here. Now cut. And move that up, making sure the grain line is straight. Tape it down and then do the same. And you'll notice, and when we do this, this should meet the corner of the lapel. I don't recommend drawing a line higher than this point. It's going to be difficult to blend this area. Make sure your grain lines are straight. And tape. Now we need to reblend our 2 sides. So again, grab your curved ruler, and we're going to start from, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the edge of the top of the lapel is slightly further over than the side of the lapel since we moved it. So we're going to start from the top edge of the lapel. And we're just going to blend down till we hit the seam line here. So here you can see what we've added. And you're going to do the same for the other side. Now this edge you can use a straight for. And there we have our new lapel piece. It's the same thing for the other one, which I'll show you now because it's a little bit longer, so I don't want you to get confused. Here we have the other lapel. Again, we're going to do the same thing. And go down 3 inches, right? And then 6 inches. And we're going to mark in our 1/2 inch. Cut. Realign. Again, making sure your grain line is straight. Cut the top one and realign. Again, make sure your grain line is straight. And tape. Now we just need to reblend our sides. You can see how similar it is. It looks further apart, and when you draw the line, you realize it's really not that off. And then the other one, again, start at the corner point. And that is our second lapel. So that's it for raising your V-neck. See, it's really pretty easy. If you need to add a bit of extra room to your bicep, this is an easy and quick way to do it that does not involve redrafting the arm side or the sleeve cap. I'll be demoing on the short sleeve so I can show you what to do with the cuff afterwards, but if you're doing the long sleeve, the process is the same. So to begin, start by drawing a line perpendicular to the grain line from one underarm intersection to the other. Now we're going to draw in the seam allowance at the top of the sleeve cap. Take your scissors and cut along the grain line from the hem just to the seam line. Now we're going to come in from the top and cut to but not through the seam line. We want it to be hinged along the seam line. And the reason for this is as we're adjusting, we want to change the inside of the sleeve. We don't want to change the seam line of the sleeve. Next, we're going to cut along the line you drew out to the edge of the pattern piece. And since this pattern isn't cut out, we're going to need to be able to pivot. So I'm just going to cut over and hinge these corners. You'll now need to place your sleeve gently so you don't break those pieces apart on top of another piece of paper. So we're going to anchor down one side, and let's say we want to add a 1/2 inch to the bicep. We're going to take our ruler and measure a 1/2 inch. We're just going to rotate this over until the red line we drew is a 1/2 inch away from this edge. Make sure that's laying flat and double check. Yep. So now I'm going to weight down this side. And you could tape this at this point if you want. So if we were working with a long sleeve, what we would do is overlap these two pieces until the lower edge meets. But you can see that doesn't work as well with the short sleeve because there isn't the length that you need to do that. And by closing this gap with the short sleeve, you essentially take out all the space you've added. So one thing you could do is make sure that this is also a 1/2 inch apart. There you can see we have a 1/2 inch between these two points, and that maintains the distance in the bicep. So we're going to tape these to our pattern piece. And then we need to redraw in this lower edge. So take your curved ruler and smooth that out. Now you may need to reblend the top as well, depending on how much you spread it. You can see there's now a little divot here. It's going to be very slight, but just make sure the top edge is rounded. So that is it for adding to the bicep. You'll note since this is wider, it's no longer going to fit with our cuff. So I just line it up to see here's where we spread it. You're going to draw a line. Tape a piece of paper underneath. Mark that same 1/2 inch that you spread the lower edge of the cuff. And then we're gonna align it back, making sure the top and the bottom are still aligned. Tape that down. And you're gonna redraw to blend the top and bottom. And now you have a cuff and a sleeve that are the same width around. And that's all there is to that. All right, so that is it for today's lesson. It's a short one, advanced pattern techniques, not as hard as you'd think. So I hope that helps you make the pattern adjustments that you need for your garment to fit the way you want it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below and I'll get back to you ASAP. And stay tuned for our next video where we cut our patterns out and we apply our fusible interfacing. After that, it'll be time to sew. So stay tuned, have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.